Amina was a poor little girl at the age of 12. She neither went to school nor learned a craft. She lived with her poor mother, Mrs. Bimbo, in a small village. One day, a very wealthy man named Mr. Peter came from the city to the village. It was a Monday morning when all the other children were in school, and Mr. Peter saw Amina fetching water from a nearby stream. Wasn't she supposed to be in school? Mr. Peter thought to himself. Mr. Peter's house was just a stone's throw from Mrs. Bimbo's house. That day, Mr. Peter did not say anything. The second day was Tuesday, when all the students were supposed to be in school. Again, Amina was at home doing house chores. "Hello, little girl, how are you?" asked Mr. Peter. "I am fine, sir," Amina responded with surprise. Amina was not comfortable talking to strangers, and she stepped backward, almost making her way indoors. Then Mr. Peter said, "Wait, I don't bite. I am just here to have a word with you." Amina smiled. "Why are you not in school?" Mr. Peter asked. "My parents did not have money to put me in school, sir," said Amina. Mr. Peter shook his head and asked, "Where are your parents?" "Inside," she responded. Just like a coincidence, Mrs. Bimbo came out of the house and greeted Mr. Peter. "I heard you do not have money to put this young girl in school, and I am here to help. Can you please allow her to follow me to the city while I take full responsibility for her education?" Mr. Peter requested. "Why not give her the education here in this village, sir? She is my only hope, and I would not want her to be far away from me. I don't want anything to happen to her," Mrs. Bimbo responded. "Don't worry, I give you my word. She will be fine," Mr. Peter promised. After 2 days, Mr. Peter and Amina made their way to Lagos, the biggest city in Nigeria. They arrived at noon, and Amina was very happy when she got to Mr. Peter's beautiful house. Here came Madame Joy, Mr. Peter's wife. "Who are you?" Madame Joy looked at Amina with an uncomfortable look as she asked the question. "Good evening, madam," Amina greeted. "And what is good about the evening?" Madame Joy retorted sharply. Immediately Mr. Peter stepped in. "That is Amina, the little girl I was telling you about over the phone while I was in the village." "Yes, what about her? Did you tell me you would bring her with you? And by the way, what is she doing here?" Madame Joy angrily said. Mr. Peter did not say a word, and he walked Amina to her room all by himself. The next day, Amina woke up to see a pile of dirty clothes. Madame Joy said, "Go and wash those clothes in that basket, or have you not been told that you are nothing but a maid in this house?" Madame Joy was very wicked to Amina, treating her like an outcast. Mr. Peter always liked to treat Amina like his own daughter, but with Madame Joy, things always looked terrible for Amina after Mr. Peter went to work. Madame Joy would make Amina pretend to be fine when Mr. Peter was around. Amina would call her parents and tell them she was not fine, but she would manage the situation so that she could finish her education. After 10 years of Amina staying with the Peter family, things got worse between Madame Joy and Amina. Amina had to run away from home to stay with her friend in the school hostel just to finish her education. Mr. Peter found Amina at the hostel and pleaded with her to forgive his wife for making things tough for her during her stay in their house. Amina said to Mr. Peter, "Do not worry, it is a part of life's journey." Mr. Peter lost his job and was not able to meet up with life, let alone pay for Amina's final year school fees. Amina did some labourer work to pay for her school fees. She went to Mr. Peter's house to tell him that she had paid for her school fees and he should not worry about her. But it turned into a big disappointment as Mrs. Joy chased her out of the house, calling her names and saying she was bad luck. Amina graduated from school as a data scientist and got a job in a big company. She changed her parents' lives from nothing to something. Amina's mother, Mrs. Bimbo, called Amina and said Mr. Peter had returned to the village to stay as they could not afford to pay for rent in the city. Amina bought Mr. Peter a new house back in the city and opened a very big store for him to start a business that would fend for him and his family. Amina went to the village and asked Mr. Peter to follow her to the city. In the city, Amina unveiled the new house she bought for Mr. Peter, saying, "Thank you for helping me get a good education despite your wife's insistence." Mr. Peter was overwhelmed with emotion. His eyes welled up with tears as he looked at the beautiful house. "Amina, you are like the daughter I never had. I am so proud of you," he said, his voice shaking with gratitude. Amina smiled warmly, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "You gave me a chance when no one else did. This is just a small token of my appreciation," she replied. As they entered the house, Mr. Peter was astounded by the thoughtfulness and detail Amina had put into every aspect of the home. It was not just a house, it was a sanctuary of comfort and love, filled with memories of their shared journey. Later that evening, as Mr. Peter settled into his new home, Madame Joy arrived, looking weary and regretful. She had been informed of the new house by her husband and had decided to come and see it for herself. When she saw Amina, she broke down in tears. "Amina, I am so sorry for everything I put you through," Madame Joy said, her voice trembling. "I was wrong, and I see now how much you have achieved despite my cruelty. Can you ever forgive me?" Amina looked at Madame Joy, her heart filled with a mix of emotions. She remembered the harsh words, the endless chores, and the feeling of being unwanted, but she also remembered Mr. Peter's kindness and the opportunity that had changed her life. "Madame Joy," Amina began softly, "I forgive you. Holding on to anger would only keep me trapped in the past. I've learned and grown so much, and I want to move forward with a heart free of resentment." Madame Joy hugged Amina tightly, her tears soaking Amina's shoulder. "Thank you, Amina. Thank you for your forgiveness and for being such a wonderful person." With Madame Joy's heartfelt apology, a new chapter began for all of them. Amina continued to thrive in her career as a data scientist, and she frequently visited Mr. Peter and Madame Joy, ensuring they were well taken care of. Amina's generosity didn't stop there. She also set up a scholarship fund in her village, ensuring that other children like her would have the chance to go to school. The fund was named the Amina and Peter Foundation, honoring both her journey and the man who had believed in her. Years passed, and Amina's success continued to grow. She became a well-known figure in the tech industry, and her story inspired many. One day, she was invited to give a keynote speech at a major conference in Lagos. Mr. Peter and Madame Joy, now elderly, attended the event with pride. During her speech, Amina shared her journey, from fetching water in the village to becoming a data scientist. She spoke of the kindness of Mr. Peter, the trials she faced, and the importance of perseverance and forgiveness. "Life will always have its challenges," Amina said to the audience, "but with determination, kindness, and the willingness to forgive, we can overcome anything." The audience gave her a standing ovation, and Mr. Peter, sitting in the front row, couldn't hold back his tears. He had always believed in Amina, and now, seeing her success, he felt his heart swell with pride.